Hi guys, today we're out in the garden. We're gonna pick some of the plums off this tree which are now ripe and ready to use. I've got my little helpers with me, so Malachi's up there. Say hello, Malachi.
Hello.
And I've got Aurora with me as well. Say hello, Aurora. So again, let's get picking.
Oh dear, I was something too high today. Can you reach them ones? Can you reach that one over there, Mummy?
So I'm back in from the garden now and I picked all the plums off the tree and there is loads. There is about 4.5 kilos of plums, which is just here, as you can see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take half of them and get them ready to freeze because there's no way I'm going to use 4.5 kilos of plums now. So what I've done here is I've sorted the plums into ripe and less ripe. So those are my ripe plums and these are my less ripe plums. So I'm going to chop these up and then pop them in the freezer. So I'll come back when I've done that. And there we have one tray of plums all cut up and ready to go in the freezer. Just try and make sure that none of them are touching each other because then they'll freeze better and it'll just be easier to get them off the baking tray. So here's my little haul of fruit, which has got 0 food miles because obviously the plums came from our garden and the apples came from next door's garden. With the plums we got left over, we're now going to make a plum and apple chutney. So let's get going. It took a little while, but there we have it. There is chopped apple, chopped plum, and then in there is all the apple core and peels, which I'll put in the freezer and I'll use for a different project at a later date. And then the stones from the plums, which will go out on the compost heap in the garden. And there's all our ingredients. So I'll quickly walk you through it, but I will put a recipe in the description. So we've got about 250 ml of cider vinegar. We've got our apples and our plums. There's about 200 grams of granulated sugar, 150 grams of light brown sugar. There's a couple of chopped shallots, 100 grams of dried mixed fruit, a teaspoon of grated ginger, a teaspoon of salt, and then there's some crushed chili flakes there as well that we'll add in. So what we want to do now is put all the ingredients in the pan, which I'll do, and then I'll come back because I've only got one hand. And there's everything in the pan. I think I need to invest in a slightly bigger pan for stuff like this. So what we're going to do now is bring that to the boil and then let it simmer for about 45 minutes to an hour or just until the chutney has thickened. And an hour later, there we go, 7.5 jars of apple and plum chutney.